In 2019, I almost died.
What's the results? What are you seeing at the end of these classes? Welcome to the Digital Defender podcast. Before we jump into the full episode, remember those gifts are down in the description. You have the free downloadable and printable targets, as well as the free year's access to the online training course and community where you can go in there, work with all the instructors. Plus, there's a bunch of hidden bonuses as well. Stay safe, and let's get over to the episode. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today we have instructor Edward Salas from Paragon Firearms Training. Edward, glad to have you on board, man.
It's good to be here. My name's Edward Salas. I'm with Paragon Firearms Training. We're based out of Fairfax, Virginia. We handle everybody from the brand new shooter that may never have touched a gun before, all the way to more experienced people that would like to dial in various needs for their shooting. We are primarily focused on the defensive mindset, but we will also teach marksmanship and kind of build people through the entire continuum of, evolution of skills. It's really good to be here.
Hey, like I said, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to get on here. I know you're busy, so we appreciate it over here. Listen, you got an interesting background on your firearms training and your instructorship. So walk us through that a little bit. Give us the down and dirty real quick on what got you into it, what led you to where you are and how you started Paragon.
Well, when I was younger, I was really into wrestling and martial arts, and that gave me a pretty good base as far as mindset and appreciation for defensive methodology. Made it to a third-degree black belt in karate, wrestled for 3 years out of the 4 years of high school, and became pretty proficient with my hands. I went through and have always kind of had an appreciation for how people resolve conflict, whether it be nonverbal, whether it be managing the threat physically. It's been something that I've been a student of for quite some time. In 29, in around the late 90s, I started being exposed to firearms, but I wouldn't say that I necessarily took them seriously as far as being a real student. About 10 years ago, actually, our area went through a major storm, and I realized we are the people that need to provide our own security, and sometimes, just sometimes help won't be there. That was kind of an eye-opening moment for me. So I started taking as much training as I could, primarily focusing on pistol, some carbine, but trying to really develop my skills from the student perspective. In 2019, I almost died. I had come down with a condition called vasculitis, which caused me to lose my sight in my left eye, my hearing in both ears, and before it was all over, I even had to relearn how to walk. I learned very quickly what feeling vulnerable meant. With my background of martial arts and wrestling and being a student of combatives, I was fortunate enough that that's what got me through it. That and a lot of praying. But what it also made me want to do is I felt a calling at that point. I wanted to kind of pass on the skill set that would allow people to be more self-reliant and more capable in defending themselves. As soon as I was healthy enough to do so, Paragon Firearms Training was founded, and I've continued my journey as a student, but I've also taken the humble honor of being able to pass it on to anybody who allowed me to.
Man, that is as I said before, that is just a moving story. And for everyone listening, the sheer willpower to come back from that. I've had my fair share of injuries, and coming back from them are never easy, let alone when you have to relearn your basic senses all over again. So, man, we're happy that everything worked out, and everything kind of came back for you, and we're happy that you came back even stronger for it. So, kind of shifting here, which kind of leads me into your training style. Over there at Paragon, you like to, yeah, I mean, you're definitely an instructor, but I like to call you a coach here, because you like to work in these private sessions, one-on-one even. You're not over here trying to make as much money in the world as possible by just putting people in seats. You really want to kind of share this knowledge and this growth mindset with your students. Walk us through your goals on that, on your small class size and your individual coaching techniques.
Well, a lot of my students are relatively new to firearms. A lot of them are the people that are kind of intimidated by bigger classes, or potentially have had a bad experience in bigger classes, or they felt like they couldn't ask a question, or that the instructor might have gotten mad at them if they had to slow down the class for, not being able to, execute a technique perfectly. We all start somewhere. And so I have made kind of right now, the mission of my company is to find those people that have a firearm, want to be more proficient in it, but might need that individual coaching where, safety is of the foremost paramount, thing. But at the same time, there is no stupid question. I'd rather have somebody ask a question before they do it. We make sure we work through it and they get it right, versus them leave with either misconceptions of, things that could be very dangerous for them, or just not ask and not being able to develop them. Being able to develop people and make them more lethal, that is something that is a calling for me.
Yeah. Humbling answer. I can't tell you how refreshing it is to hear. And thankfully on the podcast, we've had a lot of instructors that really showed that true passion for sharing knowledge, not necessarily ego, but knowledge. So adding you to the list is really just a blessing to this podcast. So I appreciate you being on. So you take this coaching mentality, saying, hey, as long as it takes, I'll work with you. Yes, I have to make sure you're safe, of course. We always make sure safety is paramount, but you take everyone in and you're teaching these more private, intimate classes, in my opinion. What's the results? What are you seeing at the end of these classes with your students? Are there marksmanship? Like what are we looking at with results in the skill sense, and then in the mental sense of being comfortable with their firearm?
It's extremely rewarding. Especially with most of the sessions, I'll go home and I won't be able to sleep because I'm that amped up when I see people learn. And it's exhilarating. You'll go from people that are nearly dropping their pistol when they shoot it to getting the groups tighter and tighter and zeroing in on, that one ragged hole that all of us chase, and then start pushing out the target a little further, and evolving them into more of a combat marksmanship. But because we've got such a solid base with marksmanship, it's very easy to add speed to that, add a little bit of stress to that, but build them with the proper mindset. So when that happens, they're able to default to, I've done this before, I can.
Man, you don't always know if you reach every student in bigger classes. I and that's always a flaw I find in firearms instruction is, the bigger the class, the bigger the student to teacher ratio, you just don't know if you're making it through. And my wife, she's a teacher. She's actually a second grade teacher. And the more they fill her classes, she says all the time, she can't get all the students up to level that they need to be by the end of the year because she can't give them that individual attention. And the more that the classes increase and she doesn't have an aide or another teacher helping, I never realized that all instructors or all teachers have that same problem, um, until I married her, and then saw, one, how difficult it was to be a teacher in this world, and two, the the implications that you have when your class sizes get so big. I mean, it's just, yes, people can still get something out of it. And I always say, if you get one thing out of training, it's a success. Even if you learn what not to do, it's still a success, in my opinion.
A lot of what you're learning in training is what not to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's why we call it training. but but yeah, the fact that you're able to make that impact, I guess that high impact percentage wise, each student is leaving with quality every single time. It's something I think all of us instructors should strive for. I'm sure most of us are, and most of us have that goal. But it's, like I said before, it's always refreshing to hear that, and to reiterate it and discuss it with other fellow instructors. So go ahead.
One of the things that I also figured I'd talk about too when it comes to what we do is I actually got the idea from some of these, back in the day, it was Tupperware parties.
Yeah.
Then, people started selling wine. People sell a lot of things this way, but I haven't seen a whole lot of people that will actually go to people's houses and teach, whether it be USCCA curriculum or NRA curriculum or even concealed carry permit, the classes. I really go building on our concept of small group classes. Whether it's somebody in the neighborhood, whether it's a coworker, or just a group of people that approach me. Often what I'll do is somebody will host at their house. They'll bring a group of their friends. And once again, it goes back to I'm in a comfortable environment. I feel, they have home field advantage, if you would say,
That's
for
true.
lack of a better way to put it. And so it is very conducive to asking questions that they might not ask if you're in a bigger facility.
Yeah, that coin term, small group mindset. It really does it. Everyone's doing a study on everything these days, and education is just another one. And they found it to be very effective. That small, breaking people down into small groups. As you said before, especially if they feel comfortable, they're willing to ask those questions that they might otherwise not ask. And at the end of the day, they actually leave, one, feeling more assured of their skills or knowledge, even if it's just knowledge-based training. Knowledge-based training is the fundamentals and the foundation of what you build your skills on. So
absolutely.
So I'm right there with you. I wish I could do more small group mindset. Unfortunately, when I go, it's usually for a large group of law enforcement officers, and they don't like paying overtime, so they just stuff as many in a class as possible. But yeah, I agree with you. I do miss the days of doing some small group mindset and going to an individual's house and teaching just a basic firearm safety course. I enjoyed it when I was up in Maryland. I did that very often, and it was always the more rewarding class. Even if you weren't out there putting hundreds of rounds down range, it was still a more rewarding class to see someone who, as you said, someone who's really fearful of holding a firearm, punching out and pressing that trigger the first time, compared to when they leave and they're the ones that are the top shot in the class, because they're the
Right.
ones that are so acutely listening to everything you say that they really just put it all together by the end.
It's been interesting, both see my students evolve and also seeing how I've been able to progress as a teacher. You had mentioned your wife's a teacher, and funny enough, mine is too. Um, a lot of the teaching theory and a lot of the lesson planning, I have to admit, I've bounced off of her.
Oh yeah.
Uh, just because she's got 20 years of experience in teaching middle school and high school. And so why not use the resource?
Yeah. Well, shoot, man, let me throw you on the spot here then. And sorry to just drop it on you. I don't know if you have any plans for it, but are you guys looking over there at Paragon looking at jumping on National Train a Teacher Day this year on June 19th?
Um, I have reached out to some of my wife's friends to see if they would. She works for a very small private school.
Mhm.
Uh, and so I've taken that approach, but I haven't reached out to any of the public schools or anything like that. Um, just kind of keeping it to trying to keep it to a relatively small class.
Yeah, no, like you said, making that individual impact. I mean, the best part is once you do that small class, they speak and share it with other teachers they know. So good on
Um,
you for reaching out, man.
what I've offered to them is actually a hybrid class. USCCA has countering mass shooter threat,
Hmm.
and it also has a curriculum on stop the bleed.
Yeah.
And so, outside of actually even any type of firearm training, it would be more so being able to apply the skills that most often they would have to encounter.
Man, you read my mind. We're actually doing a nationwide Zoom training for it for emergency medical. We're gonna and everything do teaching every. I mean, we're gonna demonstrate manufactured equipment, of course, tourniquets, chest seals, hemostatic agent, and pressure dressings. But the rest of it, we're actually going to teach them to do it all using improvise. So improvised tourniquet, improvised pressure dressings, and chest seals along those lines. So you're reading my mind on it. So I don't know. Maybe after this we'll link up a little bit. Maybe do a little collab on it this year or something along those lines. Just see what we can do to get out there. I mean, I think it was a great idea when this came around, and everything going on in Texas right now, which is just a shame to hear about. I think this year's the more important than ever to kind of get out there and give back to what we can. All right, transition. Get over to a more positive note here. Everyone that listens to the podcast knows that I'm big on utilizing technology, mostly because I was forced to when transitioning over into law school and running Armageddon at the same time. So you enjoy virtual training too, and you utilize virtual training even to a point that I haven't even looked at, which is coaching for people buying their first firearms. Walk me through this because I'm fascinated by it and I need to know more.
Well, the format's very similar to kind of what we're doing tonight as far as a conversation. I kind of get them to outline what their goals are as far as what, firearms is. I mean, whether it's to eventually carry it, whether it's strictly home defense, how many people in the household are going to use it. Um, from there, we kind of go through and I do a basic safety class, as well as kind of explaining the difference between what a single action pistol is, what a double action pistol is, how one might be an advantage over another, and why you might want to gravitate to one or the other, along with the small pistols that we have available to us these days are better than we ever have had at any other time. But also why you might want to go with a little bit larger of a pistol, depending on how you're going to use it and what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so we go through all that. It's one of those things. I have absolutely no stake in what gun they buy. Simply, I I do have some local sales people that I do recommend that seem to be a little bit more honest than some of the others. But it's one of those things where it's mainly to give them that good base that when they go into the gun shop, they can go, okay, I have an idea of what I'm looking for. I'm not just gonna be told, oh, you're a woman, you need a little gun, you know. Um, Hopefully before they go into the store, we're able to link up, we're able to do a quick 1 hour session. We'll go through and shoot a number of firearms that we've kind of isolated what they're looking for in that initial meeting. And so we can do a real targeted evaluation and really kind of get them an educated decision when they buy their first firearm.
Man, I'm fascinated by this one because I haven't heard of this before. Initial purchasing consultation or coaching, but it makes so much sense. So over the last 3 years, 2019, 20, 21, the ATF reported 11.2 million new gunners, people who have never owned a firearm. Over those 3 years, the gun FFLs reported the most return Glocks in the history for one sheer factor. When they were purchased, the owners did not know they did not have an external safety, other mechanical safety other than the trigger safety. And I'm just thinking how useful this initial coaching call with you is and could be, and anyone across the entire nation can do it and reach out to you and do this coaching call.
Absolutely. One of the other benefits it has to us is that one, we've already built the rapport with the customer. We know their personalities, we know their goals. So when they finally make the decision to purchase a firearm, when they come to us for training, we kind of already have a relationship with them. But it's so much easier to teach somebody how to shoot a gun that fits them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so going over that little bit of grip, most people, when they pick up a gun for the first time, they might pick it up in their hand, but they're not gripping the firearm. They're just holding it. Being able to kind of convey a little bit of that ahead of time and kind of teach them as much as you can virtually without being able to place their hand on their gun. It really helps as far as what they might actually decide to buy.
Man, I'm telling you, my mind's blown right now just because it's such a simple concept, but so effective if people utilize it. I could literally spend another hour talking to you about this, but unfortunately we can't. Although, you and I might have to link up again because, like I said, this is great. So before we wrap this up, I want to hit two more things. One being, do you take virtual training past that point? And I say this, I've said this on a lot of podcast episodes, and I've mentioned it earlier on this one. I've pushed the virtual training, one, because it's, people are now working out at home. The mindset is shifting. I can't speak tonight. Mindset is shifting, and people are doing the Peloton bike at home. They're exercising at home via Zoom with an instructor, just like you and I are talking right now, or on their bike. They have fitness gear at home and they're watching a YouTube channel that goes along with the fitness gear. And while firearms, you do need to get to the range and put live fire and lead down range, or, if you're shooting a non-French, shoot non-French, save the earth. I agree with you on that too, if that's your cup of tea. But yeah, there's still a way to get effective training out of it. And I like to harp on this all the time. There's not a range, or I can go to a range, but many people can't go to a range where they can do holster draws, where they can do movement drills, where they can do barricade shooting. It really, a lot of times you go to a range and you're limited to just marksmanship training. You can't even do emergency reloads or tactical reloads, speed reloads. Did I miss any reloads? I think that's all of them. But yeah, so do you take your that's my first question. Do you take your virtual training past your initial coaching call, for purchasing a firearm? And what's that look like?
We do. A lot of the classes we teach are using the USCCA curriculum, and they actually do mini classes. So whether it be countering the mass shooter threat, whether it be stop the bleed, whether it be concealed carry fundamentals, all of that can be broken down into anywhere from an hour to as long as around 90 minutes, little modules. And so we can do a series where once a week we would meet, we would cover a topic or a bunch of different topics and kind of build what you would normally do in a full, Saturday class, but break it up in maybe as long as a month.
And let me ask you this: is what has been your feedback utilizing these more virtual courses?
During the pandemic, it really was something that one kind of kept my business afloat because we couldn't meet in person.
Yeah.
But as far as being able to reach a wider audience, people that might be kind of intimidated to actually sign up for an in-person class and might just kind of want to get an idea of, what really training is all about. You had mentioned about not really, having access to a range where you can train completely how you want to train and be able to do everything you want to do. I think that's one of the advantages of going with a coach or an instructor when it comes to firearms, that not only can they teach you and build your skills, but they can teach you how to practice properly. Instead of just, sending 50 to 100 rounds downrange at a static target
Yeah,
at a
there's
set
$50.
distance, you're able to go, okay, these are the drills that I can do, and then these are the drills that I can progress to, and really create an entire training plan to help them develop.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you go to any of the top shooters in the world, whether it's long range or any type of competition shooting 3-gun. They all talk about how many rounds they put down range during training, but they also talk about how often they're dry fire training. And now that technology advances and you can get feedback through dry fire training, without actually spending the money. I mean, that's what we utilize for all of our online programs. And
I dry fire daily, and it's been a big game changer for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I know an instructor that doesn't do that hasn't said those exact words. Man, that's fantastic. I'm glad that you've had that feedback when transitioning, because we all know in the firearms industry, it's hard to make a shift. A lot of people are kind of set in their ways, and you get that more pushback, whether it's coming from other instructors or it's coming from firearm enthusiasts that have done it a certain way or studied under a certain instructor the whole time. You get a lot of pushback when it comes to, well, how do you train without doing live fire? And you tell them about these new systems, and you say, hey, it's like the bridge that builds the gap between dry fire training without any type of feedback and live fire training, and you're getting even closer to the live fire side. But one, you're not spending the money. 2, you can do it in your own home. And 3, it's safer. So
it is. One of the things that does alarm me about that type of training, especially for beginners, is if they have not been exposed to a solid curriculum to begin with, to teach them those good habits that they're trying to practice at that point, they could potentially be practicing wrong.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it builds those scars, and learning it right's very easy. Learning how to unlearn it and then learn it right, that's the challenge of every instructor.
So the big point that we're putting out here, everyone who's listening on this, is if you're getting into firearms for the first time, get a solid training plan. Maybe take a course with with Paragon over there or up there in Virginia and get some good fundamentals and let him give you some direction on what to practice first, and then go from there and start developing and taking those skills home. It's, we'll give an analogy here. It's like going to a physical therapist. You're not just going to go home and say, I'm going to practice all these physical therapy techniques when you haven't actually went to the physical therapist and he told you what techniques to practice. So you're doing more harm than good sometimes. So get a good training plan if you are going to do those at-home training aspects and you haven't had any prior experience to doing it before. All right, let's wrap this up. Everyone, we got Edward Salas from Paragon Firearms Training. Excellent instructor up there out of Northern Virginia. We're happy to have you on. Remember, he does a lot of private training. We'll have all his links to paragonft.com. That'll be in the description, as well as his Facebook link. Go over there, check it out. If you're in the Virginia area, definitely check out Paragon if you're looking for that more coaching, intimate class style where you want to feel comfortable yet still learn those valuable skills from a great instructor. The other aspect that I want to hit about Paragon is the fact that they open it up with their virtual style and they're breaking into the industry like we are. And we definitely want to promote that to those who are out there that are looking for a more accessible training, especially with the way ammunition fees are, range fees, and gas these days. Will something please drop, because everything is becoming too expensive. Edward, we're glad to have you on, man. It's been a true blessing, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Frank. It's been great talking to you. We're happy to teach anybody that wants to learn, and it's truly an honor that people trust us to develop them into more lethal individuals. Best of luck, and I hope to be back.
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely going to get you back on here. We gotta recap a couple of these things, and I need to know more about some other stuff. So listen, it's great seeing you, and we will catch up soon.
Sounds good. Thanks again.